Am I on video? Oh, pressure.
No pressure.
Pressure. Enjoy yourselves. It's the biggest football club stadium in Britain, okay, with a capacity of over 75,500. I think it's 75,749. The only stadiums bigger than ours, football stadiums, are the national stadiums, such as Wembley Stadium, Millennium Stadium, etc. Now, my name's Dave. I first came into this stadium as a 9-year-old boy. My dad and my uncle brought me, and the first match I came to, I stood where that letter D is of Stretford. There were no seats then, it was standing. And the first match I came to was against Liverpool. The score doesn't matter. Funnily enough, the first match Man United played on that pitch was 19th of February 1910, 108 years ago. And that first match was against Liverpool as well. That score doesn't matter either. Enough about Liverpool. Now, with 4 stands here at United, you sat in the North Stand. We've got the North Stand, South Stand, East Stand and West Stand. Starting at my favourite, the West Stand, that's known as the Stretford end. It's called Stretford end because there's a town called Stretford behind that stand, where a lot of our noisy, passionate fans come. In fact, it's 31st of July today, last day of July. Usually by this day, United have sold 57,000 season tickets, which means we've only got about 18,000 tickets available for each match. Now, I don't know if you can see the silver marks on some of the seats, yeah? Where the letter F is, there's some silver markings on the seats. When a Man United fan has had his seat for 25 years, he becomes a platinum season ticket holder and he can have his name on the seat. So all them markings are people who've had that seat for 25 years. All around the stadium, there's those silver marks. A lot of passionate fans. Yeah. Then the stand behind me, that's the South Stand. We've actually renamed that the Sir Bobby Charlton Stand. So Bobby Charlton first came to this club in the 1950s, made his debut in 1956 as a 16-year-old. Went on to play for United more than any other player till Ryan Giggs took that record from him. He scored more goals for Man United than any other player till Wayne Rooney took that record from him. He scored more goals for his country, for England, than any other player till Wayne Rooney took that record as well from him. See why we got rid of Wayne Rooney, can't you? So Bobby Charlton's now in his 80s. He's a director of the club and he still comes to every match with his wife. Great man, Sir Bobby Charlton. You'll see the roof of that stand is smaller than the other 3. The reason for that is behind the stand there's the Liverpool to Manchester Railway. If we wanted to build it higher, we would have to go backwards as well, and that railway stops that happening. I'm sure one day it could well happen. Then to your left we've got the East Stand, known to a lot of older Man United fans as the scoreboard end. We used to have a big scoreboard where the Adidas symbol is in the middle. That's now long since gone. I think it disappeared in the 70s. It's been replaced by 4 small scoreboards. The little black strip to the left of tearing you apart, that's a scoreboard. There's 2 on the Sir Bobby Charlton stand, another one at the Stretford end. Then we come round to the stand where you're sitting now, the North Stand. In 2011, we renamed this the Sir Alex Ferguson stand, in honour of our great manager, a Scotsman you might have heard of. In 26 seasons here, he won 38 trophies. If you look over your left shoulder, there's 19 trophies on that banner there. The other end of the banner, 19 more trophies. 38 trophies in total. Great manager. You'll see the Premier League trophy up there, which Leicester City won recently. More recently than us, unfortunately. We'll see.
Once and once only.
We'll see. Now, you're in the Sir Alex Ferguson stand. The capacity of this stand is approximately 26,000. It's on 3 levels and you sat on the bottom level. 26,000, it's actually bigger than 5 of the stadiums in the Premier League. I mean, giving you one example, when Watford play Liverpool at Vicarage Road, all the fans in that stadium could fit in this one stand here at Man United. Just giving you an idea of the size of it. Above us, we've got a cantilever roof, one of the biggest cantilever roofs in Europe. It's actually bigger than the pitch. The pitch could fit on top of that and there'd still be room to spare. It was first built for the 1966 World Cup, taken down and rebuilt for the 1996 European Championships. Also for the 1966 World Cup, United were the first football club in England to have the private boxes. You see the glass windows behind you. They allow people to eat and drink. There's televisions in there. We've got 155 of those around our stadium. As I say, it was an idea brought back from America by Sir Matt Busby. The smallest boxes are in the far corner behind the away fans. They hold 5 people and cost £23,000 for the season. The biggest box is at the Stretford end. They hold 16 people and cost £170,000 for the season. Although you do get a free programme in there, so you get absolutely. Then we come round to our pitch. Now I can see that one or two of you come from some nice exotic countries. You see a lot of the sunshine. Here in Manchester, no sunshine. Get plenty of rain. In fact, this isn't suntan, this is rust. But because of that, we've always had to dig up our pitch and put a new pitch down every couple of seasons. But 4 years ago, we put that pitch down. It's called the Deso pitch. It's 3% artificial plastic and 97% real ryegrass. There's a piece of artificial grass every 20 centimetres, and the real ryegrass grows around it, making it a lot tougher and stronger. It's the same pitch as Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Leicester City, Wembley and the new camp at Barcelona have all got that Deso pitch now. It cost us just under £1 million 4 years ago, which is a lot of money. When you think a couple of years ago we paid £59 million for one player. Remember Angel Di Maria? He only stayed here for 1 year. So £59 million for a player for 1 year, £1 million for a pitch for 10 years, that's better value than Angel Di Maria, isn't it? Gotta be. Gotta be. Now the first match we played on this pitch was 108 years ago against Liverpool in 1910, and the players came onto the pitch down the small tunnel on the halfway line. That was right up until 1992. But in 1993 we formed the Premier League, and part of the rules with the Premier League, all the Premier League teams had to have a wider access onto the pitch to allow emergency vehicles onto the pitch. So we had to build a tunnel in the far right hand corner, and we built the dressing rooms at the top of that tunnel, and that's the way the players come onto the pitch. Just one thing to mention to you while I mention the dressing rooms. Jose Mourinho decided at the end of last season he wanted new dressing rooms. I believe you've been told on reception we can't go in the dressing rooms now. They're still not ready. I don't think they've been fully painted yet for the Leicester City match. So when the Leicester City players come, make sure they've got bibs in, then they don't get wet paint on them. No, the dressing rooms aren't ready yet, so we can't go in those, but we can actually go into the tunnel and near the pitch. Now I said to you, you can take pictures wherever we are. When we stand up now, before we move on, I don't want you to take any more pictures here, but myself and John are going to bring you in the stadium 4 more times for pictures. So when you stand up, can you follow John down the steps, and we'll go on to the next part of the tour. Thanks guys.
Warda. Hey. Hey.
係因為更衣室裝修。
The era of Sir Alex Ferguson. This picture is actually made of string. I made this yesterday. Very good likeness though. Now here's a list of the 38 trophies that Sir Alex Ferguson won for us. We won 68 trophies in total in our over 100 years history, and Sir Alex won 38 of them. The first one was Crystal Palace in the FA Cup at Wembley in 1990, and there's a full list. Now for Manchester United, just like Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, it's possible to win 10 major trophies. Here's a list. Here's Sir Alex Ferguson with a picture of 9 of those major trophies. There's only one major trophy that Sir Alex Ferguson didn't win. Does anybody know what that trophy was?
Last year.
Yeah, the Europa League, which we actually won last year with Jose Mourinho. So Man United have become the first English team to win all 10 trophies. I believe Liverpool have only won 7 of them. Now, Sir Alex Ferguson, I'm sure he would have won that Europa League trophy as well. But if you enter the Europa League, you don't enter this trophy, the Champions League trophy, and he won that twice. I'm sure he would have won that Europa League as well. Great manager. This on the left, these turnstiles. We've got over 160 entrances into the stadium, and the fans come into areas such as this. And in these areas they can buy food and drink from the kiosks. You can also buy beer in those kiosks, but you cannot take beer into the stadium. It's an English rule, you can drink alcohol here, but you can't take it inside the stadium. That also applies to the private boxes. In those private boxes they sell beer, wine and champagne, but they're not allowed to serve it while the game's in progress. If they wanted to serve the champagne in the private box, they would have to close the blinds. It's an English rule, you can't serve alcohol and drink it within inside the pitch. Trouble, and they reckon it was because of alcohol, so they banned alcohol.
The thing is, if you sat behind a box.
If you want to move around the platform, guys, plenty of room. Emotional part of doing what we built. I got my signature by the letter R, and I've had it for 25 years. I have one of those silver plaques, giving away my age. My dad was born about a mile behind the tee. So my dad came here all his life. Why do you think this part of the stadium is so wide now? Disability. This is our disability section. It has room for the disability people and their carers, about 104 seats. It's not been enough. They're very in demand, so we're starting to extend towards the other corner so we can get more people in. On a match day they'll be given audio equipment, they can listen to the game on our own MUTV, and also, if you think about it, I'm going to tell you in a minute, the away fans sit right behind them, so the atmosphere is amazing. Quite scary, depending on the club. When I used to come here and Leeds used to play against us, Leeds United, it's quite a scary place to be. How many fans do you think we allow on a Premiership game? Away fans. Close. It's actually 3,100. It's not much, is it, in a 75,000 seat stadium? But depending on the club again, they make a lot of noise and they always fill their allocation. I don't know if you've seen it, rarely a club. Perhaps Wimbledon I've seen that didn't fill their allocation. How many fans do we get on a cup game? Away fans? 25%? I'm not very quick at maths, but it's about 9,000. So they'll take this end and they'll also take that upper tier there. So even louder, creates a great atmosphere. If you've ever been here for a game in an FA Cup tie, amazing atmosphere, because that stadium, that side part of the stadium is very loud. The famous Stretford end, very loud, and the noise goes from one end to the other. Can you see the flags on the top of the Sir Alex Ferguson stand? What do you think those flags represent?
Nationalities of the players.
Nationalities of all the players. If you look to the far end, you'll just about see the Spanish flag. My favourite player at the moment is Juan Mata. I love the guy. I think he's a very, very special person. What other Spanish players do we have here at United? De Gea and Herrera. Yeah? If you were to play for Manchester United, you would have your flag put up on the Sir Alex Ferguson stand. So one day, there's going to be a Scottish flag. Yep. Just for this guy here. Just feel free to take a few more photos. I'm going to put you back with Dave. He's going to take you through the next section. Yes, sir. At the end of the game, when the referee blows his whistle, our fans in wheelchairs come in this area, they go into this lounge here, Phil Downs' ability suite. And in this lounge, everything is low level. They have computers, televisions, food and drink, and generally speaking, I was supposed to go in there for an hour or so after the game, read the programmes, newspapers, etc. That lets us get 75,000 fans away from the stadium. When they come out, it's a lot quieter, a lot easier to get to the transport. Now, all the photographs taken in this area are taken either of our fans with wheelchairs or by our fans in wheelchairs. This particular set of photographs were taken in Moscow in Russia in 2008 when Man United beat Chelsea in the Champions League final. And Man United actually chartered an aeroplane to take over 100 wheelchair fans free of charge. They didn't have to pay for flights, didn't have to pay for hotel costs, and they went out there seeing Man United win the trophy. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, we actually drew the match 1 apiece and it went to penalties. Do you remember, John Terry was the captain of Chelsea. He's actually among those players there, and he actually missed a penalty, didn't he? He came up and slipped and missed a penalty when he slipped. We've actually got a picture of John Terry taking his penalty. Do you remember Steven Gerrard with Liverpool as well? Only joking, only joking.
Sing the song.
No. Also, just one other thing to tell you about in this area, guys. We've got our own police station at the end, and that is a working police station on match days. And in that police station, there are 3 cells: 1 for males, 1 for females, and 1 for bad referees and Liverpool fans. Oh no, sorry, no, the 3rd one's for juveniles. I just like to say Liverpool fans. We're going to go in the press conference room now. Let's go and see if Josie's in there signing a player. Only a brief stop here. This is one of the kiosks that the fans use before the game and at half time to have something to eat and drink. We've got over 160 of these around our stadium, but this is the only one that's got a name, Bar 68. It refers to 1968. Does anybody know what 1968 means to Man United?
European Cup.
The first English team to win the European Cup, Champions League. So we call this Bar 68. But this isn't used by Man United fans, this is where the away fans come to eat and drink. If we're playing Liverpool, Chelsea, if we're playing against Liverpool, we've got Man United, welcome, we'll put the Liverpool badge there, we'll have the Liverpool badge around the room, because there'll be Liverpool fans eating and drinking in this area. Same if it's Man City, Chelsea, etc. This is where the away fans come. Okay? Just give me 1 second. Right guys, we're going to go in the press conference room now. Can you take a seat? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is our press conference room here at Manchester United. Yes, okay. Our press conference room at United. This room has been used in the past, cheers John, when we signed our new players. First used in 1992, the first player to sign his contract for United in this room was a player called Dion Dublin, who I believe comes on television now. Shortly after Dion, we signed one of my all-time favourite Man United players. You might have heard of him, a Frenchman, Eric Cantona. Great player, Eric. Oh la la.
Broke his leg.
Great player. Now, when we signed Eric Cantona from Leeds United, Eric was sat in that middle seat next to the chairman on this side and Sir Alex Ferguson. All the press and journalists were sat with you, I know, and Eric Cantona signed his contract for Manchester United. All through the 90s, our famous players such as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Terry Sheringham, Andy Cole, all signed for Manchester United in this room, right up until 2002. And the last player to sign in that era in this room was a player called Diego Forlan. Okay? Now, excuse me, he signed in 2002 in this room, but from 2002 onwards, all the signings were done at Aon Carrington. That's our training centre about 7 miles away from here. Now, the reason they went to Carrington was this room was no longer big enough. Giving you one example, when we signed Juan Mata from Chelsea, we had 168 journalists covering that story. There's only 63 seats in this room, so it just wasn't big enough. So they went to Carrington, but when Louis van Gaal became the manager, he wanted the signings back here at Old Trafford. So when he signed Angel Di Maria, Daley Blind, Radamel Falcao, etc., we signed those in the Europa Lounge, which is a lounge here at Old Trafford that holds over 200 journalists. So what happens now when we do a big signing, such as Paul Pogba, Alexis Sanchez, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, they're either done over at Aon Carrington or in that Europa Lounge, no longer used in this room. Okay? So this room's not used for signings anymore, but it is still used by the manager to do the after-match press conference. So after every game, generally speaking, the away team manager first. So if we're playing City, it'd be Pep Guardiola. He'll come and sit in that middle seat and speak to the press and journalists where you are now. Then he'll go, and then Jose Mourinho will come in. So next week, the Leicester manager, Puel, yeah, Puel, he will come in here, and Jose Mourinho will as well. So next Friday, those managers will be in. Now, when Sir Alex Ferguson was the manager, he also used to come in this room to do his press conferences up until his final season. Back in 2013, Sir Alex Ferguson actually refused to come in here for league matches because he actually didn't trust the press. He didn't think they would write down what he said, so he stopped coming in here. But for Champions League matches, he had to. He was under contract, so he had to speak to the European press, which he did for all his European Champions League games until his final one. Now, his final game back in 2013 was against Real Madrid. It was a match that they beat us 2-1. Cristiano Ronaldo scored the winner for Real Madrid. I don't know if you remember, Nani got sent off. Do you remember the high kick? And the Turkish referee gave him a red card. That Turkish referee was rubbish. Rubbish. I know I'm a little bit biased, but he was rubbish. And Sir Alex Ferguson thought he was rubbish as well. Because afterwards, when he should have come up here to do the press conference, he refused. And the following day, UEFA fined him €10,000. One of our staff members asked him, Sir Alex, why didn't you come in and just sit in that seat and talk about that Turkish referee? He knew they would fine you €10,000. He said, listen, if I'd have sat in that seat and said what I thought about that referee, they'd have fined me a lot more than €10,000. So he thinks he saved himself some money. We're going to go in the VIP lounge next, so follow me this way. Oh, we don't want to show that. Yeah, mate.
You alright?
Free beer, free wine, free champagne, yeah?
Only on Thursdays.
Alright, okay, no, we'll come back. We'll come back. That's Liverpool scoring the fourth goal. We don't have an off switch, do we, on these TVs? Can't believe we're showing that on the tour. Sir Bobby Charlton, a director of the club, sometimes Sir Alex Ferguson, also any special guests we have. I know Usain Bolt, the runner, you know Usain Bolt, he's been here a couple of times. Rachel Murphy, he's got Rachel Murphy off Countdown. I think so anyway. One Direction, one or two special guests do come in here to have the pre-match meal. The players used to eat in here up until 2006. We had tables and chairs on the floor where you stood now. So players such as David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs used to have the pre-match meal in here. But what happens nowadays, the players, they go to a hotel in Manchester the night before a game. The reason being, Jose Mourinho and the coaching staff can see what time the players go to bed, see what they have to eat, and they all come to the match together about 2 hours before kick-off. Just want to mention one other thing in this room if I can. That top door up there leads into the old boardroom, and in that old boardroom there's a very special item. If you want to host a Champions League final on your pitch in your stadium, you have to have a 5-star stadium certificate. And there's only 2 of those in England. One's at Wembley Stadium, the other one's in that old boardroom, because we did host a Champions League final in 2003. AC Milan played Juventus. We're going to go back into the stadium now. Can you take a seat in there for me, please? I'm going to go about halfway along.
Warda!
Hey guys. Hey.
Hey, Colombe! What up, baby?
Take a seat there, please. So Alex Ferguson sitting in a nice comfy seat with armchairs, look across and see his name on the opposite stand. When you've won 38 trophies, that's the honour you get at a stadium. So Bobby Charlton has got 4 seats in that section for himself, his wife and any guests. Even our manager has 4 seats in there. But Jose Mourinho sits at the bottom with the players, but he does have 4 seats for his wife and any guests that he has. That's the Man United directors box. The next section only is for the away team directors, but that's Arsenal, Man City, Leicester City, Real Madrid, whoever. The next section, along with the black pads in there, that's where the press and journalists sit to do the match reports. Those black pads come down and the rest of the tablets to do the game reports. Now getting back to the Man United director's box, the most important seat in that section as far as I'm concerned is the bottom left hand seat. Here at Man United we've got many legends. Sir Bobby Charlton, George Best, Dennis Law, Sir Alex Ferguson, Duncan Edwards, Ryan Giggs, the list goes on and on. Well, for me, the biggest legend in this football club, with all due respect to Sir Bobby Charlton, was our Scottish manager, Sir Matt Busby. Sir Matt Busby joined us in 1945, just after the end of the Second World War. He was our manager for 25 seasons, building several great teams in the 40s, 50s and 60s, winning trophies with all those teams. But if you ask any older Man United fan which was the best United team ever, they'll probably tell you the team from the 1950s. He brought several young boys from Manchester to play for our club, and they became known as the Busby Babes. We won the league title in 1956 and we became the first English team to play in Europe, in the European Cup, now the Champions League. We got to the semi-finals only to get beaten by the best team in the world, which was Real Madrid. They won that trophy the first 5 years it was played. At the end of the season we won the league title again, so we entered the European Cup again. This time we wanted to win it with our young team. In the quarter-finals we played a team from Yugoslavia, now Serbia, called Red Star Belgrade. Beat them on this pitch and we drew in Belgrade, so we were through to the semi-finals. Now after that match in Belgrade we had to fly back to England. Well, this being February 1958, we couldn't fly from Serbia to England in one journey. We had to stop halfway, so we stopped in Munich in Germany. When the plane came to take off, it was winter time, so there was snow and ice on the runway, and the first 2 times the plane skidded. We tried a third attempt, the plane again skidded, crashed through perimeter fencing and crashed into farm buildings. There were 44 people on that aeroplane and 23 people died, including 8 of our Man United football players. Our manager Sir Matt Busby was in hospital for 18 days. Twice they gave him the last rites, thought he was going to die. He was a tough Scotsman, came through, became our manager again, and 10 seasons later we won that European Cup on an emotional night at Wembley in 1968. He retired in 1970, and when he retired he always sat in that bottom left hand seat, watching United play football every week, until he died in January 1994. Now when Sir Matt died in January 1994, from then to the end of the season, nobody was allowed to sit in that seat. It was left empty as a mark of respect to the great man. The following year, his son Sandy Busby sat there for 7 seasons, and when he died, Sir Matt Busby's grandchildren sat there. They no longer sit there now, but it does still have Sir Matt Busby's name on that seat. Okay guys, what we're going to do now, we're going to take you into the tunnel. So if you want to follow me this way, let's take you down. To the game in a coach. The coach parks to the other side of those big double doors at the top end. The players come through those doors, turn to their right, and there's a corridor in which the dressing rooms are. The away team dressing room is the first dressing room, then there's the Man United dressing room. Excuse me. Now, I mentioned to you before that all the teams in the Premier League have to have this wide access. If we had an emergency on the pitch, if we had a fire out there, those big double doors at the back can open up. These seats here, they can raise 25 feet into the air. We could actually get an ambulance or a fire engine onto the pitch if needed. All the Premier League teams have to have this wide access now. Okay. Right, I'll tell you what we'll do. Can I have the adults down this side? Can I have the children at the top end, please? A mile away from here, on the industrial part of Manchester, Trafford Park. But 2 bombs actually fell on this stadium, on Old Trafford. One in 1940 and one in 1941. And that second bomb in 1941 landed on this roof. It destroyed this stand, virtually destroyed the whole stadium. Now after the war we got the builders in 1946 to rebuild our stadium, but the only bit of the stadium still standing intact was this concrete tunnel. So the builders said, we're going to knock this tunnel down, then we can start with a flat piece of land. Man United said, no you don't. German bombs couldn't knock it down, builders don't knock it down. But they made the builders rebuild the stadium around this tunnel. This tunnel is the only bit of the stadium still standing intact from the original game back in 1910. Now many famous players have come down this tunnel. The players from 1910 to 1992 would come on the pitch this way. So you got players such as Georgie Best, Sir Bobby Charlton, Dennis Law. There's also a player you might have heard of. Do you remember Diego Maradona? I came to a match in 1984, a Cup Winners' Cup match against Barcelona. I was stood in the Stretford end and Maradona came on the pitch this way. Barcelona. We beat them 3-0, so it's good. So as I said, many famous players have come down here. It's no longer used now on match days. In fact, if you come to a match, this is actually gated off. It's in no use at all, but it's kept as a mark of prosperity and for you guys to see on the tour. We're going to go up this tunnel now. At the top of the steps, can you go left and right? I'll have another word with you at the top of the step. Oh, the Man United dressing room on this side, the away team on that side. The players got changed and then down onto the pitch that way. Now, it's no longer dressing rooms, it's actually a suite here at Old Trafford, the Premier Suite. Now, here at Man United, you can actually get married. They do have weddings here. I was actually doing a tour very similar to this last year, and as I'm talking to the guys, a bride and groom came down around that corner and then down the steps on the pitch to have the wedding photos taken. Not too sure what Sir Matt Buzzy would make of that these days. I just want to mention these photographs here. If I can start with this photo, please. This is a photograph of the United players taken in the 1950s. Above the photograph it says Babes. In the middle is our manager Sir Matt Busby, and these are Busby's Babes. Now, Sir Matt Busby, next to him is our captain and fullback Roger Byrne. He was also the England captain and fullback as well. And just before that game we played in Belgrade, his wife became pregnant, expecting the first child. She was going to tell Roger he was going to be a father for the first time, but then decided not to. Let him go to play his important match in Belgrade. When he comes home, that's when I'm going to tell him he's going to be a dad for the first time. Unfortunately, he never came home, so he never found out he was going to have a son. Another fact I only found out last Tuesday, to be honest. Another of the guys who died was this guy, Mark Jones. And Mark Jones' sister was on the tour last Tuesday. It wasn't me who did the tour, it was another tour guide. And she was saying Mark Jones' wife was also pregnant when he got killed in that crash, and she had a baby in the June. So we actually had two players who actually left pregnant wives. I can't look at this photograph without mentioning this guy, Duncan Edwards, born in Dudley in Birmingham. At the minute, the best player in the world is probably Cristiano Ronaldo, or possibly Lionel Messi. One of the best players in the world back in the 50s was this guy, Duncan Edwards. Now, so Bobby Charlton has been on the same pitch as Pele, Eusebio, Beckenbauer, George Best, and he still says the best player ever on the same pitch as him was Duncan Edwards. He played regularly for Man United at 16 years old, as a boy, both in attack and defence. He played regularly for his country, for England, at 18 years old, and he died in that crash at 21 years old. They were a fabulous team. I don't want to leave this area on a sad note, so I want to mention these three guys to you over here if I can. Got an Englishman, an Irishman and a Scotsman. No, it's not a joke. In the middle of this photo, guys, we've got a Scotsman, Dennis Law. Back in 1964, Dennis Law scored 46 goals in 42 games. He was the king of the Stretford end. And he was voted European Player of the Year, the best player in Europe. In 1966, when England won the World Cup, the Englishman Sir Bobby Charlton was voted European Player of the Year, best player in Europe. In 1968, when Man United won that European Cup, the Irishman George Best was voted European Player of the Year, best player in Europe. With 3 European Players of the Year playing for our team in the 60s, the only time it's ever happened in one team. So you can imagine what a fantastic team we had in the 60s, but yet a lot of older fans still say that team in the 50s was even better than this, but 2 fabulous teams. That brings us to the end of the tour. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit round. As I say, I've been doing this job for 5 years. It's not a job this, it's an absolute pleasure, and it's good to sit round like yourselves. Now, I'm going to let you go into the Megastore. Yeah, as all tours, they always finish in the shop, don't they? But there is something in there that's free of charge. You're all entitled to a free tour certificate. There's a copy on the door there. The one you get is A4 size. You can have your name printed on it and it's free. If you want that certificate, go to the far end of the Megastore, see the people on the left-hand side, show them your ticket, and they'll give you that free of charge. When you go out to the Megastore, opposite there is a statue of the 3 guys I mentioned before, Bestlaw and Charlton. There's a manager of Sir Matt Busby above the entrance to the Megastore as well. Turn to your right, on the end of this wall there's a plaque to the 8 players who died at Munich. There's a clock on the wall, the date 6 February 1958. And there's also a Munich tunnel with 11 flags telling the full story a lot better than I can. That's on the outside of the stadium, so it's free of charge. If you go to your left, that'll take you back to the Meg Cafe, to the museum, also the ticket office. It just leaves me to say now, on behalf of myself, Ian, on behalf of Mike, on behalf of John, thanks a lot, and on behalf of Man United, it's been a pleasure. Safe journey home.